two, three. What is up, basketball fans? I am Jason Burgos for Sportsnaut.com, and I have the pleasure of being joined by the man who has had plenty time covering on one of the most fascinating teams in the NBA today for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and that is the 76ers beat reporter, Keith Pompey. Keith, thanks so much for the time today.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on the show.
I have a ton of questions because 76ers are very interesting. So, obviously, Tyrese Maxey's amazing start has been a major story, not just for the team, but honestly, I feel like it's one of the better stories in the league right now. However, I feel like Nick Nurse's influence is kind of flying under the radar a little bit. And team's 8-1, best record in the league. You know, a coaching change, that's a major change. Players and coaches getting adjusted, that can take time, but they're flying, and they're off to such a good start after the first month. Why does it seem like these players are maybe a better fit for Nick Nurse's style than maybe they were for Doc Rivers?
Well, part of it is, some of the players that they're dependent on are guys who basically weren't here before, like before Kelly Oubre got hurt. But I also think that, you look at Tobias, in last year it was kind of sort of, Tobias is a guy who came back, but last year was kind of sort of a two-man game, whereas Nick Nurse is more free-flowing. And Tobias is just a great fit for him based off of the success he had with athletic power forwards in the past, talking about Nick Nurse. So whereas when you get out that two-man game, you get Tobias Harris more involved, and that opens things up for everyone. So I think that's the main thing right then and there. But yeah, it's like he just has a different free-flowing offense, whereas in the past it was more so the Joel Embiid and James Harden pick and roll and everyone else standing around. So he's just better utilizing the pieces that they have.
Does General Manager Daryl Morey deserve some credit for landing Nurse to replace Rivers? Or honestly, did he kind of just get lucky that he was surprisingly available and willing to take this job this in the offseason?
You know what? I think he gets credit. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you want to, this is his first coaching hire. Doc Rivers was hired before him. He gets credit because, Nick Nurse is a guy who had a lot of options out there, but based off of his relationship with Daryl, based off of the guys on the roster, that he felt like that this was a good fit. So, yeah, you have to give him credit. You have to give him credit for that one. Yeah, it wasn't like, it kind of fell on his lap, but at the same time, let's face it, on paper, the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks were more enticing jobs than Philadelphia. So he came here based off his relationship with Daryl.
Now let's talk about Maxey. He's taken a huge leap forward this season. Yet, what is most impressive? He's getting more minutes, he's getting more shots. Obviously, that'll add to more points, stuff like that. But his field goal percentage is actually up. His three-point percentage is the same. Like, those things haven't been hampered. This feels, like you mentioned, maybe is it the Nick Nurse system, the free-flowing system, or is it kind of that? But also, he's done other things to continue to get better this season, which he's done every single season of his career.
I want to say his being able to be a point guard. And, you look at it, and he's not completely there yet when you talk to Nick Nurse and people like that. Now, they love it. They love it. But like Nurse, he wants them to be a little bit more aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. He wants them to do stuff like that. 2 years ago, a lot of people don't remember, before they made that trade for James Harden, Tyrese Maxey would dribble the ball up the court, and as soon as he got past half court, he would pass the ball to Tobias Harris, and he would go over on the wing. Mm-hmm. They would run the offense through Tobias. Yeah. Now you fast forward to right now, and Tyrese Maxey is 7th in the NBA in assist to turnover ratio. He had several games where he had a 10+ assists and 0 turnovers. Wow. So to me, even though we're talking about his shooting percentage, we're talking about his three-point percentage, the fact that he has a command of this offense and is being a quality point guard, to me, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest leap in Tyrese Maxey's game, in my opinion.
Now, I spoke about this recently with Kurt Heelan, but I want to get your perspective because you cover the team so closely all the time. But it feels like the 76ers have kind of gone from, they're a top team in the East, they're a contender, to me, they feel like they're now the most dangerous team in the NBA. And the reason I feel that way is because they're still a top team in the East, but now they have the flexibility to add more impact players, which they didn't have before. Are they in a better position than they were this time a year ago? Or do you feel maybe the fans and the pundits need to pump the brakes a little bit? They still got a little bit more to prove, and there's some weaknesses there that haven't been showing up yet.
It's a tough one because they passed every test that they had. They're playing extremely well, but at the same time, I do feel like they still have more tests to go through,
Yeah.
right? But in regards to you asking me, are they a better team than they were at this time last year or whatever? Yes, a completely different team, and it goes back to Nick Nurse. It goes back to the pieces that they have had. I do think that they are a legitimate contender, but I also think that it's been early days, and if we're going to be real, they played three quality teams.
Yeah.
They lost to the Bucks, they beat the Pacers, and they defeated the Boston Celtics. And they have the Pacers and the Celtics coming up back to back, right? So right now, I feel like we'll learn a lot more about this team, but at the same time, you have to give them their flowers because
Yeah.
they are playing extremely well, and they're doing things that I never thought that I would see them do this season.
Let's say Maxi can maintain this all star, legitimate all star level, starting all star kind of level. Does this kind of significantly change how they may approach the deadline when it comes? Because a lot of people just assume in this era, oh, they're just gonna go get another star. But maybe they don't. Maybe they go smaller pieces that just fit better with the system, sort of like what the Lakers did in the deadline last year, and it made a big difference. What do you think? Do they go for that big star, or because they have the money to with Maxi making not that much, or they said this is a big two, let's just give them more pieces that work better with them?
You know what? And that's a great question, and I'm with you. I mean, I think that it could be one of those things where it could change their approach, because my thing is like, yes, it's always good to go looking for that star, right? But you have a star in Maxi, an
Yeah.
ascending star in Maxi,
Yep.
and I feel like right now, if you bring somebody, you got to be careful who you bring in
Yeah.
because it could disrupt the flow, the
Yep.
chemistry a little bit. But I feel like if Maxi can continue to ascend, if he continue to play at a high level, um, I feel like the Sixers will be better suited, going after a guy, but maybe someone who's not the quote unquote ball hog mega scoring star, someone who can help them out in different areas, be extremely impactful in that area. But yeah, you look at the way Maxi's playing. I mean, you have to say that he is the best team through 9 games. He's the best teammate that Joel Embiid has had in regards to a tandem, in regards to him.
Based because you know the team so well, based on the makeup of a team. If it's still early days, we're still a month away from the deadline close. But what area do you feel if they're going to make an impact trade? That is it front court? Is it shooters? Is it bench? What do they need that you feel like, okay, if they can get some, maybe a particular guy, if you want know a name, throw it out there, that'd be a good guy that would help them a lot.
I think like if you right now they got a lot of stuff going with their depth, like small forward depth, but I also feel like they could go out there and use another small forward or another two guard, right? I mean, a backup point guard or someone who just a traditional point guard. He doesn't have to play a lot, but someone you can have on your roster. But right now, if we go on as like OG Obanobi, like I just butchered my man's name from Toronto, but OG, like I think if
Yeah,
you can
that would
go
be
out,
sick.
if you can go out and get a guy like that, I mean, I feel like that, he's the piece that you need.
Yeah.
Now again, like Nick Batum, and all those other guys are playing extremely well. But let's just say if you had OG and you start him at like the small forward spot, right? And then you can have him doing all those other things. It just makes you a whole lot deeper
Yeah.
with when Kelly Oubre comes back, he's coming off the bench providing buckets. You have Nicholas Batum coming out and doing a lot of things. I think, but the thing that OG does is he's a defensive minded player. He doesn't have to score the ball, but he'll just always guard the opposing team's best perimeter
Yeah.
player.
Yep.
That's the type of guy that I think they should go after if Maxi continues to ascend.
Barring a major injury or some wild downturn that's always possible, but because of what happened with Harden and that whole situation, because of the start they're having, because of Maxi's rise, did this all kind of maybe save Daryl Morey's job, or because they're still playing great. It maintains the standard. Okay, we can still win a title. Is he still very much on a hot seat, and he's still not safe after the season?
I think a lot has to depend on what happens in the playoffs. I mean, because like this start is great, but 2 or 3 years ago when Daryl Morey first came here and Doc Rivers, they had the number one record in the East in the regular season. They were the
Yeah.
number one seed, and they went out in the second round. So I feel like while all this stuff is great, they're all ultimately Daryl Morey's going to ultimately be judged by what he does in the playoffs. You know what I mean? If he can't get out of the second round, I think he's out of here. This is great, but
Yeah.
if he can't get out of the second round, I think he's out of here.
Surely Maxey's play this season, nurses, like we're talking about his coaching and everything, had a huge effect. But how big has Harden's addition by subtraction maybe been? But his personality not being around and being on, how has that helped? Was he just based on experience of knowing the team, following the team? Was he maybe a drag on the locker room or certain plays in a certain way, or do you think he gets a bad rap? And really, it was just all this summer. This was summer is where it all fell apart, and it was all cool before then.
Well, here's the thing: like Harden got along with a lot of his teammates. A lot of the guys liked him. Like he didn't, even when he was there, and he wasn't. I know he only scrimmaged once. He only did this and that, but he was with the guys. He was around the guys. Like they all like him. I think the benefit is though that they're better off without him, just because of a different style of play. Harden is a ball dominant player. That's when he's at his best, right? Whereas right now you need a free flowing offense. Secondly, it enables Maxey to take a larger role. It enables Tobias Harris to take a larger role. And then you look at 2 of the 4 guys they got back in return, Nick Batum, Robert Covington. They're already key guys in their rotation. So when you look at it, I think the Sixers became deeper. It also enabled Tobias Harris and Maxey to elevate their games. And I just feel like they're just better off without James. You know what I mean? I just think so. But in regards to like the culture, the chemistry, this and that, like James, they still like James. James still like his teammates. The problem was more so with the relationship with Daryl Morey in Harden, more so than anything else.
And I'm glad you brought up Maury's relationship with him, because that's where I was going for this last question. As a person who's covered sport for a long time, covered in that area for a long time, based off your knowledge of the fan base and the team and all these kinds of things, and all these kinds of elements in such a unique city, what's going to be James Harden's like lasting legacy? It was a short time in Philadelphia, and just overall, does the situation forever affect his reputation? Maybe he's looked at as a problem child or a malcontent or something like that. Do you think this forever change, especially if maybe the Clippers don't do well this year, or do you think in a way because him and Morey had a fallout in Houston, had a fallout again, Daryl Morey has like a bigger influence maybe than people get in this reputation narrative around James Harden?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I feel like a lot of his legacy basically will be determined by what happens here with the Clippers, right?
Yeah.
If he can repair it. I think right now it's easy for people to say, "Hey, look, what do you mean, dude? Like, you were, you were the king. Daryl Morey did this, he did that." Like we all know about James, like the party. We know how the team playing would stay over an extra night so he could party, or they would leave or have an off day so he can party. Well, Daryl Morey was the one who facilitated that for him, right? So people are saying, what's going on? But to me, is like it will if James can ball out and play at a high level, people will stop talking about this, right? If he can't, people going to say how he messed up. The only thing is we don't know what he said Daryl was lying about, right? We don't know. But the thing is, right now is not a good look. But I also think that if James could find a way to get in shape, to get a rhythm and play well, I feel like he'll make his lasting legacy as a Clipper. But right now it just doesn't look well.